Hey, welcome to this video. If you're new here, my name is Richard, and in this video, I'm going to walk you through a step-by-step process of how to set up automations in Home Assistant. Home Assistant is the most powerful smart home automation platform out there, and it's also open source and free. Unfortunately, not a lot of people use it because of the learning curve it comes with, and it's just not as easy to use as compared to something like, let's say, Google Home or Alexa. But in this video, I'm going to walk you through the step-by-step process of how you can easily automate things in Home Assistant. So at this point, I'll assume you already have your Home Assistant set up, you know how to get to the UI, and basically you have all your devices added and ready to go. My goal is to help you understand automations as much as possible in this video. So I grabbed a few devices to kind of help you visualize how automations are going to work or how we're going to interact with it. The first device on my list is this West light bulb, which I got a couple of years ago. This is a RGB light bulb, fully local with Home Assistant. Unfortunately, it's Wi-Fi, but again, it's fully local, so I don't really complain about it. Along with this bulb, I have this 3D printed lamp here that I'll have the bulb in just to kind of make things easier as I work my way around the automation. So just in case you see that happening. Secondly, I have this Zigbee PRR sensor, which is a motion sensor from Third Reality. Zigbee is my favorite protocol, so it's nice to kind of have something like this, which works very reliably. Last device on this list will be this Bioreza IKEA smart home button. This is fully local with Home Assistant with Matter over Thread. I also 3D printed this case to kind of help it sit on my desk nicely. So I'll go ahead and put this in there like that. And if this is your first automation, you'll probably be confused by the screen because you see three options. We have the trigger, conditions, and then the actions. I want you to think of trigger as some sort of a cue for Home Assistant to know this automation needs to start. So the first example would be when there is someone in the living room. That's the real world explanation, but in Home Assistant, that means either the TV is on, the couch is saying someone is in it, however smart your home is, or you have a motion sensor in the living room that detected somebody. Secondly, will be when you leave the house. If you have the Home Assistant companion app, you can set it to track your location. So when you leave the zone of your house, Home Assistant knows you are no longer home, and you can also use that as a trigger. Real world example would be when I leave the house, then whatever follows. Or when I get home, I want this to happen. Let's talk about conditions. I want you to think of conditions as a guardrail in your automations, or as a couple of statements that needs to be either true, false, or however you want to define it really before the automation runs. The benefit of a condition is it prevents your automation from running when you don't want it to, or make it run reliably as you would want it to. To better help you understand conditions, I want to employ our first analogy that we use to kind of give you an idea. Let's say when you leave the house, you want everything at home to turn off. But you do have a spouse, right? Or you have kids or whatever. You have someone at home, a guest. And so you want to make sure when a guest is over, nothing turns off just because you left the house. So in our automation, our trigger will be when I or my wife leave the house, right? And then the condition will make sure to check for when there's no guest, which you can use an input boolean. I can tell you what it is. It's like a visual switch, right? That you can switch on and off to say there's guest home, or your Home Assistant companion app is on, let's say, your family's phone, and you make sure it says that all of them are away before Home Assistant runs the action. So which means when you or anybody leaves the house, Home Assistant will check to make sure there's nobody else at home before it turns off everything. There are three types of conditions in Home Assistant. We have the end condition, which is I want to make sure all of these things are true before you run the automation. So when I'm not home and my partner is not home and my friends are not home, however you want to define it, right? So a series of events that all needs to be true before the automation run. We have the all automation, which is the same analogy, but any of them being true. So it's when I'm not home, or my wife is not home, or my friend is not home, however, right? So any of those ones are true, the automation will run. Last type of condition would be the not true condition. Think of not true condition as a condition that needs to be not true for an automation to run. So an example is when it's dark outside and John is home, but the John is home is in a not true statement. So realistically, you're saying and John is not home. So if John is not home, wherever he is, the light is going to turn on just because he's not home. Now to the most important part, which is the actions part of the automation screen. The actions are the actual things that you want to happen after all the conditions have been met. So I go to the bathroom, the light detects me, so the light knows I'm in the bathroom, and it's dark at night. Turn on the light. So the action will be turn on the light in this situation. Just like with a lot of Matter devices, this IKEA button gave up when I needed it the most for the automation. So I got a reliable Zigbee sensor right here. This is a button, like a $5 Zigbee smart button to test with that. This should be way better than that one. So now for our first automation, we will want to use this button right here to turn on and off this light, right? So, or to change scenes and events and things like that on the light. And so that would be our first automation. And so real world scenario would be if you had a lamp in your living room that you wanted a small button to be able to turn it on and off without you having to constantly go up there to plug it or unplug it or however. This would be a great scenario for that. All right, so for our first automation, we'll go to settings and then we'll go to automations, and then I'll create a new automation from scratch. I like to have two screens when I'm working on automation so that I see exactly the devices I'm trying to use. So I'll go ahead and go here. I know the button, I called it YouTube. Oh, if I can spell. YouTube test button. And so this is it. You don't see anything here, but it's kind of, yeah. Anyways, we'll go here. And then our trigger will be when the button is pressed one time. So we'll add trigger and then we'll go to device and then we will go ahead and search for the button. So however you named it, in my case, it's going to be the YouTube test button. And then actions would be, for example, when it's pressed one time is a single action, or two times rapidly double action or held. So I'll go with single action, right? And then we can say YouTube lights control, and then we can save it. That will be the name of the automation, right? And then we don't want to use any conditions for now, but the actions is what you want to happen. So it's going to be turning on the light. So click on the light and then we'll be on. So toggle the light is like turn it on if it's off, and off it is on if it's on. Does that make sense? So for now we just want to basically turn on the light. So we'll click on that and then we will search for the light. So living room lights right here. This is the first one that I stole. And so when it turns on, you can set it up how you like it. Let's say you like temperature a certain way, you want some effects, you want the brightness, let's say you want to do 100% brightness, and then very cozy. So yeah, so this will be your first automation. When you press the button one time, it should turn on the light if we did everything right. Now this is the moment to test this automation together. So a single press of this button should turn on the light. So now let's go. So you see, it turned it on reliably, just a single press with minimal effort. Now let's say this was a lamp in your living room and you wanted to, for example, be able to turn it on and off, or be able to use this just as a toggle switch. We'll be able to do that in Home Assistant easily. I'll go ahead and show you how to do that. So if we were hoping to use it as a toggle switch, it's easy. We go ahead and click on this one more time and then click on the light, and then instead of turn on and off, we just use toggle, right? And then we will set the light right here, and then I will delete the first action. Home Assistant works from top to bottom, so if there's anything up here, it would work on it as well. So I'll delete that one. And then even though you can only see the on settings. The off, you don't really need to make settings for that. So we would set how we like the coziness, or however you like it. Let's say whenever it turns on, you want it at 100%, or if you had a specific light effect, you could easily add that as well. But for now, I'll go ahead and save it that way, and then we'll test it. Now we are trying to use this as a toggle for that light. So right now the light is currently on, so a single press of this should turn it off, because that's our trigger. So now you can see it turned it off, and then it turns it right back on. So now let's make this automation a little bit more interesting. So let's say you have this lamp, it has a lot of effects, right? But you don't always have to go through the app to put on some effects and things like that. You can basically set it up that way. So in the effects section, all you have to do is to say, this is the effect I like. But let's say you want your kids to be able to switch to random effects by just clicking the button. There's not a native way to do that in Home Assistant, but the beauty of Home Assistant is if you can create everything you want. So I created a script that can push to the next effect of every light that you have specified. So we'll go and use that, and I'll have the script in the link as well. You can get the code, and then you'll be able to use it in your environment as well. So now, using the same baseline we did as the trigger, which is a single press of the button, we want to now be able to switch through the different kinds of effects the light comes with, right? Realistically, if the light is on and you single press it, you want it to turn on. So we will go ahead and use what we call an if then to kind of, if the light is on, then turn it on before we actually switch through the scene. So if then, it's a building block. So you go to the box and then here. So the condition is the current state of the light. So the current situation the light is in. So I just search for state, and then you search for the light itself. So in this situation, the living room lights, and I believe it's the light 1 is what we are using. So if it's off, right now the light is on, as you can see. So this will not work. And so if it's off, then turn on the light. So you can actually search sentences as I'm doing right now. And so I'll go ahead and do living room ceiling 1. And then you can specify how you like it to turn on by default, right? So let's say you like it to be that. So if you wanted to, I'll show you if you wanted to do a specific number, but and then you want to be 100%. So all of this, it's writing the code in the background for the automations to work seamlessly, right? So let's say if you wanted to edit this number to, let's say 2700 Kelvin, you can go ahead and click here, and you can just do edit in YAML, and then here you just put 2700, and then you can go back to the visual editor so now you can see it's 2700 if I press on it. But anyway, so let's say when it turns on, you want it to have a specific effect, so you can go ahead and specify that specific effect you want here. But in my situation, I just want it to turn on with no effect, and then I will switch to effect if I want. So right now it will turn on the light when it's off, and then using the script I made, we will toggle through the event. So we'll go through, I think I called it, yep, next light effect. And I will add the code in the description in my GitHub. You can just copy and paste it. Home Assistant doesn't come with this by default, but I hope you get the gist. So you can search for that, and then you click on it. And so basically you find the light you're looking for, which is the first light here, and then I save it. So realistically, if I did everything right, if the light is off, it will turn it on. And then if we press it one more time, it will start going through the scenes. So let's go ahead and test it. Now, if I have a single press of this button, as we established, it should turn on the light. But we added a little bit of the scenes to it. So now if you press it one more time, it should start going through the scenes. So we'll go ahead and test it. Like, it should start going through the effects, by the way, sorry. So first, the light is off, light turns on. So now the light is on, and you're like, I kind of want a different kind of effect for the lights. So I press it one time, and you can see it's doing a different effect. So it's just cycling to the next effect. One time, it should go to the next effect. So run time, and then that's the next effect. So you can just go through as many as you want with the light. So now you can see it's turning green, and I don't know what's doing there, but you can do several things with it. I hope that kind of makes sense. So you can go through it. But now what you can see is missing right now is a way to turn this light off. We can add a second trigger, which is if I double press this thing to turn it off. I'll go ahead and jump on the screen and show you how to add that to your automation. So now we want to add a second trigger to be able to turn this light off. We could easily create a new automation. So we can go ahead, and I like to duplicate from scratch, like duplicate the current automation, and then we can change this to a double action, right? A double action, that's a double press. And then we can, using this same logic, we can delete this light, this action right here, or I'll just work with you from scratch. Why not? That's the purpose of this video. So using the same logic, right? The trigger is when I double press this. I want the action to be when this light is turned on, so that you can use the double press for other things around the house if this light is not turned on. So now I'll go ahead and add the condition, and it will be the current state of this light. So which is the state, which is the states. So now the condition is living room lights 1 is turned on. So now if this is turned on, then do the following action. Right now the light is on, so if I test it, it says that it's turned on. And so now the action will be, you can, instead of searching, I am used to searching, you can go to light and then turn off, and then we'll go ahead and find that light again and save it. So you can name it whatever you want, living room. I'm adding YouTube to it so that I can delete them later. Something like that, right? And then you save it. So right now, realistically, if we double press that button, it should turn off the light. Let's test that. We have an automation that will handle turning this light off. In that automation, we were able to talk about conditions a little bit more, and I hope that made you understand that if this button is double pressed and this light is on, which is the condition, then turn it off. So we'll go ahead and turn it on and see if we can turn it off. I have that one press, and then one press again. We'll kind of cycle through the effects like we established, right? The effects, there are several of them, so it takes a while to get one that will show on camera. But right now, realistically, if I double press it, it should turn it off. So it turned it off. The double pressing on this light is a little tricky, so turning this thing off, I would normally use like a hold if I want it, but I hope that gives you the ideas. Going to an automation, what a lot of people like, right, will be to use motion sensors to turn on the light. So with a motion sensor like this, we'll be able to turn this light on and off when motion is detected. So for the motion automation, we'll go ahead and click create new automation. There's already one that you could use, but I'll go ahead and create one from scratch to kind of help you go around to see how I like to create my motion or light automation. So I'll go ahead and create the new automation. So the trigger would be I called the motion sensor U2 PIR. So like that, I normally, my naming convention, I try to add whatever type of sensor it is so that it makes it easy for me to see. And right now I can see that it's detecting someone right now, which is me. So we want to use this entity or this sensor right here to make the automation. So the trigger, you could easily click on this, click on this gear here, and then copy the entity ID just so that you know that you're using the exact entity. And then we're going to use the state of that entity, so the state. And then I'm going to paste what I copied, which will bring up the entity I need. And then we want it to be when it's detected. So what this means is when it detects motion, then whatever is down here follows, right? Or you could easily use it as a device. There are several ways of doing the same thing in Home Assistant. So you go to device, and then you click the device here, and then you search for it. We call it YouTube, so YouTube PRL, and then you can say when it becomes occupied, which means when it detects motion. So these two are the same thing, just different way of doing it. I normally do the top one, but this one is also good as well. So right now, even though we are not done, I can save this automation. Normally I'll call it, let's say, YouTube motion light control, and then I save that. So now right now I have this, and now we'll go ahead and create turn the lights, which is gonna be the living room ceiling eye. So when motion is detected, it doesn't matter if you have these two, then turn on the light. So right now I will go ahead and set it how I like it, and then set the brightness to 100%, and then we will go ahead and save this, and then we will test it. So right now we made our first motion activated light automation, which is using this third reality sensor to turn on the whiz light in here. And if you realize, it still hasn't turned on even though the automation is done, and the reason is it's still saying it's detected from when I was here, even before the automation existed. So I have to get out of the room, let the sensor go to clear, and then I'll come in, and then we'll go ahead and figure out if it turns on or not. Clear now, so there will be the moment of truth here. And as you can see, the moment it detected me, it turned on the light. So as you can see, the moment it detected me, it turned on the lights, which is exactly what we wanted to happen. But how do we turn it off when we are not in the room? I'll go ahead and build this automation, and there are several ways of doing that, but I'll go ahead and show you how I personally do that. Alright, so now this is the current automation we have, and we want to build in turning it off and on all together, so that when I leave the room it turns it off, when I come to the room it turns it on. And so right now we will make a few changes to this automation. Right now we only have one trigger that turns on the light, right? I'll go ahead and duplicate that trigger by clicking on this 3 arrows here and then going to duplicate, and then I will go ahead and go to clear. So from detected, so the reason why I want to put in it a guardrail is sometimes when you reach that Home Assistant, it will go from unavailable to clear, and you don't want your lights turning off to that. So you want to make sure that the entity goes from detected to clear, so that if it goes from someone being here to someone not being here, that's when it will trigger. And so this will be, we can give it an ID. So giving it an ID is like giving it an identification, so that you can find it down below. So you will see what that means very soon. So you edit the trigger ID, and then you can call it no person. You can call it whatever you want, right? And I'll copy this, and then I'll save this, right? And then the first one, we now want to make sure that it goes from clear to detected, just to be safe, right? So that it doesn't trigger when it doesn't need to. And then we'll edit it, and then we'll call it motion person. I don't know, you can call it whatever you want. It's an ID, so it doesn't really matter what you call it, as long as you use it right. So right now, conditions, right? Let's say you only wanted to turn on after 11 p.m. 2 p.m. This is where you add it, or after sunset. So after sunset, you click condition, and you can say, let's say sun, and then you can show, like, is it before sunset, after sunset? So if you want it to be after sunset, these are not compulsory. You can just say after sunset. This is after sunset, and then before sunrise, then it covers throughout the whole night till when the sun rises. I hope that makes sense. If I run this automation, it should not run, like it should not, because it's not in that time frame. But let's say you want it to run during the day, right, which is after sunrise but before sunset. This should pass because it's currently 11 in the morning, so it's kind of in the day. So you can define night time as that. So that's kind of one thing. We don't need that for this purpose. But what I do normally would be is I have if I go to settings here and I go to helpers, I create overrides, which means something that I can use to override the automation. So for example, let's say we were in the kitchen, I could use the kitchen override and then use the state of it. So state, and then paste that, which is the kitchen or the master. The master is for the whole house, so every automation has that, right? Master override needs to be off. So if I turn on the override, it will make this automation not work. So right now it's off, so it should work, but if I turn it off, it won't work, if that makes sense. So right now we have these two triggers, and then we're gonna do a choose. For now, I'll let this one sit here, and then we'll do a choose. A choose is like a smarter than if then. So you choose based on certain things. So it's one of the most powerful, I guess, integration elements you can use. The trigger, the condition is I want it to be triggered by something before that part goes on. So this is the choose, and these are the choices you have. The first choice is this one. The first choice will be to turn it on. So we go to conditions, and then we use triggered by, and then motion person, right? So if you are like me and you want to make sure you name things, you can click here and rename it and say turn it lights on. You don't need to do any of this. This is just me doing it so that you can understand. So the first option is turning that light on, and basically what I did here is triggered by means this part of the automation will only be triggered by this part, which is the detection of a person, right? And so the action will be light turn on, and then you select the lights you want. So in this case, it'll be the living room ceiling one light, and let's make it something different, right? We can make it red, just to kind of make sure we can distinguish between it. Make it red and make it 100% when it detects someone. And so that is done. And so for example, if you wanted to say it will only turn on after sunset, you can add it here, or you can add it here. Normally it's best to add it here, but that means it will affect turning it off as well. So for now, we'll go ahead and disregard this one right here. You can go ahead and delete it. Now we need to create another option, which is the option that will turn off the light. So we create option 2, and then we rename option 2, which is turning off the light. Again, you don't need to rename it. And then you go ahead and search for triggered by, which is it needs to be triggered by that specific trigger, which is this one, which is the no person, which is what we gave it that name. And then what we want to happen is we want the light to turn off. If you wanted to make it lengthy, you can add an if then. So instead of the light, just turn it off. If the light is on, then turn it off. But you don't really need to do that if you have a decent hardware. So now technically this automation is done. Sorry, I forgot to specify the lights here. Now this automation is done. So if the motion sensor goes to clear, it should turn this off. Full motion automation done, which is turning it on and turning it off. There is a major flaw in this automation that I will discuss here shortly, but I want to make sure it works once I leave the room and before we discuss that. So let's make that happen. So you can see it worked. It turned off when I left, and it turned right to the red that we specified when I came back into the room. Like it works as we specified it to. It turns off when I leave, it turns on when I come in here. But right now, I don't have any time constraint on it. So the moment I leave, it turns off. And you don't want to do that, especially with a motion sensor, because this is PRL. It only detects motion, right? And so you want to add some sort of a time to this when I'm not here. So let's say when I leave for 5 minutes or when I leave for 2 minutes, that's when the light will turn off. Let me show you how to do that. To add a time constraint to, let's say, how long the lights will turn off, you just have to add a time constraint to the trigger. That's why I built it this way. It's kind of make it nicer so you don't have to add delays or anything like that. So you click on that trigger that turns off the light, which is this one, and then you just add, let's say, 5 minutes. So right now the trigger will only go off after 5 minutes of me not being in this room, instead of having to wait longer. And you can specify as long as you want, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, however you want it. So basically that is how you add that. If for some reason your automations are not working, you just need to click on traces here to kind of give you an idea of what is happening. So right now I can see everything that triggered. So when I came in, the time I came in, and then it was this trigger that did it, which was the motion person, which was me being detected. And what it did was it checked to make sure this condition was off, which it was. So it resulted to a true statement here, and then it pushed down to the choose, and it chose between the two. And you can have as many choices as possible. I'll make a more advanced video on these in the future if you guys are interested. But you have these two choices. Now I can see that it checked this, and then it turned on the light. Basically that is exactly what happened. I hope this kind of gave you an idea of what you can do with the Home Assistant automations. These are very, very basic automations and how I do things. I plan to go advanced automations if you guys like this video. And if you have any questions for me, just leave it in the comment section. Like, subscribe for when the new video comes out so that I will address your questions in that new video. If you want to hire me to work on your Home Assistant instance on my free time, you can reach out to me via the channel email. And I appreciate your time. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in another one. Take care.